Hey everybody, Ryan Alexander with Denison Yachting. I hope that you're excited for today's walkthrough. I know that I am. Over the last 3 years that I've been shooting boats, there is a unicorn that I've been chasing, a boat that I have wanted to shoot, a manufacturer that I've wanted to be a part of featuring, and today it's happening. Today I'm going to be showing you a Feadship. It's an 87-foot Feadship built in 1984 that goes by the name Motor Yacht Patriot. This yacht is listed centrally for sale with Denison broker ccollins, and while Chris is a recent addition to the Denison team, he is by no means a stranger to the super yacht world. Him and I got on board first thing this morning. We took the boat out for a sea trial, fired up the drone. One of my props went flying 200 feet in the air, so we had to come back. So long story short, I am here in Chris's stead to walk you through this 87-foot masterpiece. Before I break down each space area by area, I want to give you a bird's eye view of what makes this a one-of-a-kind yacht. The first thing that jumps out at you is her color scheme. She was fully repainted in 2016, and she has a glowing white superstructure that contrasts a rich navy blue hull above the waterline. When the yacht is running and up on plane, you get a better view of the elegant gold boot stripe and her Americana red hull just below. Combine this with her teak transom and gold leaf nameboard, and you've got a pretty good idea of the pride taken in this yacht. In the early 80s, when Feadship was approached with this build, they were a little hesitant at first to take up an entire shed to construct a boat on the smaller side of the Dutch yard's capabilities. So they agreed to build two of these Sportfish that might be better described as gentlemen's sport yachts. These builds were constructed entirely of aluminum with 3 cabin layouts, accommodating up to 7 overnight guests. And part of the magic of this boat is the aluminum design itself, as it's the perfect material when it comes to refitting the vessel. Fiberglass can be impossible to rework, and steel is nearly impossible to rework with any nuance. Over the years since she was commissioned, Patriot has been masterfully refit by a small group of very experienced yachtsmen and captains. This is part of what makes her stand out. Only the most qualified of hands have gone to work on her. The most extensive of her refits took place from 2005 to 2007 when she was stripped down to bare aluminum for a 15-month yard period at Directors in Florida. Every inch of this boat was refit, from the carpentry and electrical systems to a pair of brand new 12V2000 engines in 2007. The bill for this refit was well over $10 million and set up Patriot for a long future on the water. Since then, several million more has been invested to keep her fine-tuned. To tell you pretty much everything you need to know about Feadship, all you need to see is this book right here. In its day, this was probably one of the most expensive books made because it's about 250,000 bucks. In here, you have every single aspect of the boat. You have the electrical, the plumbing, and the more that you dive into this boat, the more that you realize that every single decision that Feadship made, they are accountable to, because not only do you see it, but there's documentation for it. In the several hundred pages full of detailed descriptions and photographs, you're given a deep insight into what makes this boat tick. It took over 2 years to compile all this information, and is the main reason why it's so easy for a new captain and owner to come on board and take over. Here we see a great example of this detail with a view down at the piping below the deck. Having images of everything opened up like this takes all the guesswork out of maintenance and troubleshooting. After her integral systems were put into place, there was a special sound dampening and rubber insulating floor that was installed. This makes for unmatched decibel readings of the interior, even as the yacht is powering ahead at full speed. Seeing as in her most recent years this boat has been designed as a summer home, the level of detail and ergonomic thought put into her construction is seen virtually everywhere. There are no sharp corners, all the finishes are scratch resistant, and there's more storage than you know what to do with. And as much pride as the current owner has for Patriot, Feadship holds her with the same level of esteem. Having offered the owner custom vintage badges to display her builder's unparalleled name, her owner declines for one reason: the mystery. Anyone who knows boats takes one look at Patriot and immediately asks who built her. The look on their faces when they hear that she's a Feadship only adds to the intrigue and raises more questions. For a yacht of this caliber, both the builder and buyer are in on a little-known secret that continues to unfold the more of her you see. Today, we're excited to show you just about every inch of this pedigreed mystery and let you get an inside look at one of the most mysterious boats on the water. The view of the stern as she's speeding away is a great place for us to start because it hints at both her vintage and the emphasis placed on her entertaining spaces. The first of these areas we're going to take a look at is her mezzanine deck. On either side of double doors are a pair of bench seats where guests can relax and take in the sights. A polished stainless safety rail runs along the aft, and there's an absorbent teak sole that's found underfoot. To port and starboard are back-down stations, which are designed for easy docking and maneuvering in tight situations. These also come in handy when you're positioning the yacht if you've got a fish on the line. At these aft helms, the captain has access to engine throttles, a bow thruster joystick, and rudder controls. Besides your spotlight control, you can also take command over the boat's hydraulic outriggers. Another important fishing feature is seen in the overhead, a pair of teaser reels. These are centerline in the brow, where we also see that there's lighting and an alpine sound system. Looking towards the port side, there's access to the radar mast by way of a hidden retractable ladder. Found on this custom mast are a full complement of electronics and antennas that serve as the yacht's eyes and ears when you're en route to your next destination. Equipment up here includes a pair of Garmin open array radars and a KVH SAT TV dome. All of this equipment is connected to the electronics located in the enclosed bridge directly below. Now we're going to take a look at where everything connects, the primary helm that serves as mission control. Entering through double doors, we get our first glimpse at a gorgeous teak finish design, the details of which we'll touch back on throughout the rest of today's walkthrough. First, we're going to look at the helm. This space was designed hand in hand with the yacht's current captain, who really dialed this area in. We see this personal touch first with the helm seat that faces the navigation equipment. In addition to a fully adjustable chair, on the left side we see an arm that swivels away from the armrest. On this custom edition, we have a Garmin autopilot and grid control so the captain can stay seated and still make key adjustments. The central feature here is the Garmin glass bridge that has 4 multifunction displays. On these you can arrange a variety of systems such as your chart plotter and dual transducer fish finder. On the starboard monitors, we see part of Patriot's Servo Watch ship's monitoring system, as well as a screen that's typically dedicated to CCTV cameras. At the moment, we see the engine room, an immaculate area that we're going to dive into in just a few minutes. Below the portside monitors, we see a Furuno AIS transponder and a FLIR night vision thermal camera. Next to this, we have the ship's wheel that's set into a teak helm pod. On either side, we see the throttles, as well as a spotlight control on the left and a bow thruster joystick over on the right. Just below to starboard, we have the controls for the quantum stabilization system and one of 2 VHF radios in the area. Finally, I want to point out this intuitive electrical control panel. In the green section up top, you have control over all of the lights. Below this, in the red area, are your alarms. If anything's going wrong, it's going to show up here in this subset of buttons. In yellow, you can verify if features like the generators, water maker, and fuel polishing system are running. In blue are miscellaneous controls for the anchor and a switch that lowers the main helm monitors down into the console. With the monitors in this lowered position, you can see just how much glass surrounds this elevated helm. This series of 13 windows on all sides charges this space with light and a panoramic view. Up here in the enclosed bridge, you've got seating for over 8 guests. Aft of the helm are your first 2 seating areas with L-shaped settees in each corner, each with its own tabletop. These are great for those slow cruises with cocktails in hand. Forward of the helm is a long bench seat that faces the horizon. In addition to the bench seat, this area also has a sink to the port side, as well as a ton of storage. Integrated into the lower cabinetry, you see that there's a refrigerator. Overhead here are a pair of skylights that add even more light to an already bright and airy space. The last thing that I want to point out in here are the stairs that lead down to the main deck. When it comes to the level of craftsmanship that went into the millwork on board, you need look no further than the staircase that connects the enclosed bridge with the Salon. A feature that adds some peace of mind is a custom child safety gate that can be popped out when you've got kids on board. The use of teak on Patriot is not only impressive in its design, but also in the sheer volume of it that you find all over. It adorns not only the interior flooring and cabinetry, but also the rest of the guest spaces that you find on the exterior. This includes the mezzanine deck, which we've already taken a look at, and the massive cockpit found directly below. This area features a split-level layout with a lower entertaining and fishing area, as well as a shaded and inviting mezzanine just a few feet above. In the lower section, everything at the moment is based around a dinette for 6 with a high-gloss teak table. The size of the cockpit allows for plenty of room to pull out your chairs, with space left over for walking around the outside when the crew is delivering your meal. Outboard and to starboard, we see a removable boarding ladder that leads down into the cockpit. This can easily be moved around to either side of the boat and is integrated into the natural teak cap rails that surround the entire cockpit. These cover boards are also equipped with rod holders that double as cup holders. Next, note these polished plates that cover the aft rod holders. Removing these covers allows you to add a custom sail shade system that covers the entire cockpit. 4 poles are added along the aft that make it possible to give you shade whenever the sun is proving to be too much. Over on the port side, we have the shore power cable, which is operated using an electric reel. This is just aft of a heavy-duty fire suppression system. When you're not entertaining back here, this area transforms entirely in just a few minutes into a fisherman's dream. The chairs and table are first removed and replaced with a Murray Brothers fighting chair. When converted into fishing mode, you can take further advantage of a split-level live well with panels that break away along the interior. Doing so reveals Lexan panels that turn this into an aquarium-style bait well. Integrated in between these are 2 7-inch Garmin displays that read off your speed and depth and can be seen from the fighting chair. Another important fishing feature is the tuna door found in the starboard aft corner. Now let's take a look at the mezzanine that's forward and 5 steps up from the lower cockpit. Below these stairs, by the way, there is a ton of storage. For seating, there's a long bench seat center line where 4 can sit side by side with their eyes glued to the lines in the water behind you. You also see the same style of safety rail that we found at the upper mezzanine. Providing shade to this area is a molded brow that's been outfitted with lights, speakers, as well as CCTV cameras. Moving to the port side, we next come to a wet bar that contains a hot and cold water sink and a top-loading beverage cooler with lift-assisted hatches. All of the cold storage found on the exterior is stainless, including a deep refrigerator in the mezzanine step and a pair of fish boxes under the cockpit sole. This starboard side fish box is filled with ice directly from an ice maker located in the lazarette. This large storage area is also where the crew has access to Patriot's steering system, which is found in the aft. Wrapping up in the cockpit, let's next take a look at the mechanical space, which we access forward and centerline. This is one of the most intentionally designed engine rooms that we've shown you on our channel, as it was planned and laid out with plenty of room for routine maintenance in mind. I'd first like to point out that the engine room is integral to the design of Patriot's soundproof hull. This assures that you don't hear the engines up in the salon above or in the guest cabins that are located directly forward. Before we take a look at the engines themselves, I want to point out a few other features found in this immaculate mechanical space. For example, forward and centerline is an Alpha Laval fuel polishing system that feeds the engines purified fuel. Outboard of these, yet still forward of the engines, are a pair of large sea chests that cool all of the major systems in here, including the engines and the generators. Outboard are the head units that control the Quantum zero-speed fin stabilizers, which have their own power pack. A great example of how well organized everything is down here is this bilge manifold. Every line is clearly labeled and allows for great access to the surrounding machinery. Jumping to the starboard side, we see a sewage treatment plant that sanitizes every ounce of water that passes through it. And then we have the kilo pack genset. Each of these is 60 kilowatts. These are double insulated, quieting them down and eliminating all vibrations. Aft of the port generator is the all-important AC shore power converter, allowing you to plug into any dock on the globe. And I'd also like to point out the 3 recently replaced 6-ton Dometic chillers for the HVAC system. Immediately adjacent to these and to starboard is a Spectra water maker that makes about 840 gallons a day. The stars of the show down here are a pair of 2007 MTU 12V 2000 common rails. My favorite thing about these is the subtle ice blue paint job that covers each part of the motors with the exception of the polished steel valve covers. Each of these engines puts out 1800 horsepower and offers Patriot a top speed of around 25 knots when the throttles are pegged. For a much lower burn rate, you can drop back to about 12 knots. This is her slow cruise speed at which you're burning roughly 40 gallons an hour. Generally, Patriot cruises at 20 knots, where she burns about 155 gallons an hour. At this rate, with the 5,000 gallons of fuel that she carries, Patriot boasts a 700 nautical mile range. From here, let's jump from her performance numbers to the most comfortable area on board, the Salon, which takes up the full 20 feet 8 inches of the boat's beam. Upon entering, we have a seating area on the port side. This includes a sofa, a love seat, and a swiveling armchair. This makes for the perfect place to unwind after a long day in the sun and on the water. Looking opposite into starboard, we have the primary indoor dining space. This area used to be a wet bar, but the owner wanted something more practical, and this dinette was it. This includes an L-shaped settee and a granite tabletop. Another feature added here in 2016 was a 48-inch TV that drops down from the overhead. Continuing that Americana theme is the custom cut carpet underfoot that covers the teak sole. This dark carpet also helps cut down on any glare that might come in through the 17 windows that surround the Salon. When you're back at the dock or you just want a little shade, you can achieve this with the ocean air electric blinds that are operated through the Crestron system controlled by an iPad. Forward of the Salon into port is the galley. This is one of the areas that has gotten the most attention in the last handful of years. The most practical aspects in here are the storage and the countersunk granite countertop. These make the galley feel more like a proper home kitchen than something you'd see on a Sportfish. Below the countertop, there are 4 cold drawers. 3 of these are refrigerators and 1 is a freezer. Right next to the freezer is where we see a drawer-style dishwasher. Other appliances in this area include a hideaway microwave that lowers down below the countertop electrically when you're not using it, and an ice maker that's found adjacent by the stairs. A lot of the storage in here was added in 2016 to make the most of every available inch. The most crucial of this storage was for all the bottles and the glasses, which hide away neatly below the countertop. In the forward section of the galley is where we have a large Corian sink as well as a pair of glass cooktops. The downdraft ventilation for these cooking surfaces is located in between the 2 sets of burners. And then opposite the galley are the stairs that I pointed out earlier that connect the enclosed bridge and the Salon. This has an incredible, seamless design and puts the skill of the craftsman who built it in 2006 on full display. For example, this faucet here drops down out of the way, and then we've got these covers that slide out to cover up not only the sink, but also the cooktop here. Nice feature about this is it really doubles what we saw up in the wheelhouse, and that is a nice, neat, clean look. Taking the centerline staircase down, we're gonna enter the main guest companionway, and before I show you each space in detail, I'm just gonna show you the layout. So first here on the starboard side, we've got our bunk cabin with our laundry and the ensuite just aft. This doubles as the day head, but perhaps my favorite thing about this cabin is that there's a pocket door. So say you've got the washer and the dryer going in there, or the kids are making a bunch of noise, you just shut them in there. And then directly across the hall on the port side, we have another cabin. This one also has 2 berths. A cool feature in here, one that I'll come back to, is hidden right behind that panel right there. Like the other cabin, if we turn aft, we've got our storage and our entrance into an ensuite with shower. And our third accommodation is found forward, and this is the master. Just offset on the port side, we pass the ensuite and we enter the owner's suite. Jumping back to the starboard side cabin, we have the bunk room. This cabin is a supersized version of anything that you normally find on a Sportfish. The bunks are outboard and benefit from a whole side window and a large skylight overhead. The theme of maximizing storage continues in here as well, with all of these cabinets next to the bed, as well as a large credenza and a full-sized hanging locker. This often doubles as the crew cabin on board Patriot, so it helps that there's a desk that drops down from the inboard bulkhead, giving you a place to plug into the boat's internet network and get some work done. As we've already covered, one step outside of this cabin is the laundry center with a separate whirlpool washer and dryer. Immediately aft of these is the shared ensuite that has a vanity and aquarium shower stall. A nice touch in the ensuite that's also found in the rest of the accommodations are these wall coverings. These add a great texture and a little bit of extra depth to each room. Leaving here, let's jump across the hall to the port side and take a look at the next guest cabin, which has a twin configuration. As I noted before, here outboard, I want to point out this right here. Now, it might not look like much, but in here is where everything that ties these 2 berths together is stored. So this is probably a month of planning right here that most people would never see. And one way that you know that this is quality is if you pull this out right here. I worked as a carpenter for a little while, right? And we have this thing called edge banding, which is basically you throw a little glue and a veneer along the outside and it keeps the moisture out. Well, what Feadship has done is outdone themselves. And they added this teak around the outside, but they have this really awesome design right here. If you wanted to pull out just the panel in there, you just flip that down and you can pull that out. But they also created this incredibly unique tool that also ties the beds together, and this keeps it in place, which likely no one will ever see. When the beds are separate like they are now, you've got a nightstand at the head of the berths that's equipped with an iPad. You'll find this in all of the guest spaces, as these control the yacht's Crestron entertainment system. Other important aspects of this cabin are a Pullman berth that allows you to sleep 3 in here, as well as a cedar-lined hanging closet, which is just outside of the ensuite. Heading all of the way forward in the lower companionway brings us to the master stateroom that couldn't be any more comfortable. The combination of this spacious layout, new carpet, and an abundance of storage makes this cabin stand out amongst others in her class. At the foot of a queen berth, we've got an entertainment center with a TV, and then heading aft brings you to a breakfast bar with space for a coffee maker, and there's even a beverage refrigerator. Located one step to the port side is an ensuite with a shower stall. Before we move on to the last stop in today's walkthrough, I want to point out that behind this panel, once it's removed, this is the mast for the davit. So you see that this is actuated and the whole davit actually raises up on the foredeck. This nautical structures davit has a 2,000-pound lift capacity, and because of its telescoping design, you can hoist and retrieve an oversized tender. That's what explains this Williams 505 diesel jet tender. This is the most substantial rib that I've personally seen on the bow of a Sportfish, and it's the perfect complement for a gentleman's sport yacht. It's got seating for 6 aft and room for a few more forward. If this jet tender isn't your thing, you also have the option of a 19-foot Maverick flats boat. For this, there's a different set of tender chocks, but it offers Patriot a completely different capacity. As for the foredeck construction, one of my favorite details up here is the gorgeous teak tow rail along with these custom fair leads. These are a great complement to the oversized Freeman deck hatches that open up into the staterooms below. You've likely also noticed the natural teak sole that's found forward on the bow. This is where we find the chain locker as well as the ground tackle. As for the anchoring setup, this boat is equipped with a Maxwell vertical windlass that raises and lowers a 350-pound stainless steel anchor on 500 feet of durable 13mm chain. Next to the windlass and below the starboard hatch is an 8-foot deep space that was designed for 2 crew members, but is currently used for storage. Not only is it plumbed for a head, but it's also air conditioned, so when you're down here handing lines and fenders up, you get relief from the heat. It's aspects like this and others that I've shown you that illustrate the intentionality and versatility that comes with building a yacht of this pedigree. And you know that you've built something special when the crew loves a boat just as much, if not more, than the owner does. But that's what it takes to run a machine like this: attention to detail and adoration. So I'm not sure what you were expecting when you saw Feadship in the title of this video, but I bet more than a handful of you clicked it and thought there's no way that this is a Feadship. That's partly because of the acclaim of their larger super yachts and the fact that when this Dutch builder does something truly special, they move on. That's what makes Patriot unlike anything that I've been on in this class and why there's nothing else like her. On behalf of the entire Denison Yachting team, broker Chris Collins, and yours truly, Ryan Alexander, thank you for joining me on today's walkthrough of this unicorn of a Sportfish. If you have any questions about this 78 Feadship, or if you'd like to get on board, you can reach out to Chris. If you have any thoughts of your own, you can leave them down in the comment section below. We look forward to hearing from you.